Episode 1: Soichi's Curse of Desire. On a dark night, there was a sound of something being hammered coming from deep in the forest, and it was Soichi hammering nails into a voodoo doll that represented a classmate he disliked, causing that classmate to suddenly feel severe stomach pain. Soichi was well aware of this, and enjoyed the act of casting spells or giving commands to others, as every time he performed such rituals, he felt extraordinary, possessing superhuman powers and being above everyone else. The next day in class, Soichi proudly observed himself, and at that moment, he heard his classmates talking about something happening to Oya. The classmate Soichi had cursed, which prevented him from attending school that day. Soichi pretended not to know about it, but expressed satisfaction that Oya was suffering, muttering to himself that Oya deserved it for being too showy. His friends saw Soichi talking to himself and laughed, thinking he looked crazy and scary. Meanwhile, there was a fight happening on the schoolyard between Kurodo and Giyama, and Soichi stood by the window, his expression suggesting he had a plan, and he remarked that hatred was brewing again, indicating he was thinking of teaching his friends at school another lesson. That evening, on his way home, he couldn't stop praising himself before he stopped walking and turned to dig around the roadside, where he found a frog that was meditating. He decided to take it home because Soichi thought his house would be warmer than that place. Upon arriving home, he placed the frog in a metal box and closed the lid, then sneaked a look at his family members who were sitting watching TV after dinner. His family all seemed normal, except for Soichi, who acted strangely and constantly looked down on others in the house. He also used the frog he had caught to scare his sister, claiming he was superior to everyone. His brother, hearing this, laughed, feeling fond of his silly younger brother, who often embarrassed him. Soichi, who was tired of being teased by his brother, planned to get back at him, but first, he had a big task in mind: to curse Kurodo, who had a conflict with Giyama that afternoon. He chose to use a meditation curse by burying a representative doll to make it sleep in the forest, stating that he would dig it up in the next spring. As a result, the next morning at school, Kurodo, the boy who had fought with Giyama the day before, became the subject of gossip as something bad had happened to him, and he had mysteriously disappeared without a trace. Most of his friends pointed fingers at Giyama, the other party involved, but he claimed he knew nothing about it. In reality, it was Soichi's doing, as he began to teach others a lesson, acting as if he were a vigilante. The scene cuts to the pine forest next to the school, where the landowner, Mr. Chow, was walking through his forest when he discovered a voodoo doll nailed to a tree he cherished, along with another doll buried nearby. This made him very angry that someone had intruded into his forest and damaged his trees. Mr. Chow complained that he had encountered this kind of thing too often lately, and was considering how to remove those dolls. However, before he could leave the forest, he noticed what appeared to be a head on the ground. At first, he thought it was just another doll's head, but as he approached, he realized it was the head of Kurodo, the boy who had gone missing. The next day, the students at school gossiped that they had found Kurodo, who had been buried in the forest next to the school, and although he was not dead, he was merely asleep. Meanwhile, in another corner of the classroom, Soichi, who was eavesdropping, began to think. Soichi thinks this plan will surely work, but luckily for him, Kurodo remembers nothing, so he escapes unscathed. Instead of reflecting and fearing what would happen if he got caught, Soichi starts to devise a new plan in his mind. He imagines that while his three friends, Kawaii, Izaka, and Kankuro, are gossiping about others, they will surely turn on each other. While Soichi is lost in thought, Ishizaka, the bespectacled boy in the group, asks to go to the bathroom. Soichi seizes this opportunity to sneak in and talk to him, saying that he must be feeling uncomfortable and that he probably wants to kill Kawaii. He then offers to help Ishizaka by cursing Kawaii, even though Ishizaka never expressed any such feelings and stands confused by Soichi's words, as in reality, Ishizaka and Kawaii do not hate each other as Soichi imagines. That evening, Ishizaka told Kawaii about the incident on their way home, but Kawaii found it funny and said it sounded entertaining. At that moment, they coincidentally encountered the old man, the cruel one, who was setting traps in his forest to prevent anyone from disturbing it. Meanwhile, Soichi was borrowing a flashlight from a friend because he suddenly wanted to explore the attic. What Soichi found there was a dead spider, and upon seeing it, he decided to use it to scare his sister again. However, his brother came in and, not afraid of the spider, playfully threw it at Soichi, causing the spider to land on Soichi's face, making him scream in surprise and embarrassment. This led Soichi to think about cursing his brother with a spider curse. The next day in class, Soichi began his plan by using a fruit as a stand-in for Kawaii, writing a script to make Kawaii feel stomach pain until he asked the teacher to go to the bathroom. Soichi then followed him out and locked the bathroom door behind Kawaii. He started the spider curse as intended, causing Kawaii, trapped in the bathroom, to face a giant spider that appeared before him, making him scream in shock as it sprayed webbing all over him. When his friends heard his screams, they rushed in to find Kawaii had fainted in the bathroom, surrounded by tissues. Soichi, pleased with his work, quickly approached Ishizaka to ask how he liked the revenge he had taken on Kawaii. However, Ishizaka was uninterested, not understanding Soichi's intentions at all, which made Soichi feel frustrated at being overlooked by his friend. He then planned to get back at Ishizaka. That night, Soichi went to a public phone and pretended to call, claiming that Ishizaka had won a free trip around the world. Although Ishizaka recognized Soichi's voice, he agreed to wait in the schoolyard, as he was curious about what Soichi was up to. Moments later, Ishizaka heard a strange noise, and upon looking closely, saw a shadow of something with long arms and legs, resembling a ghost. Terrified, Ishizaka ran into the pine forest, but the strange figure continued to chase him. It was then revealed that the long-armed figure was Soichi himself, but misfortune struck Soichi when the arms and legs he had made from branches became a hindrance. Soichi ended up caught in the trap set by the cruel old man, stuck to a tree and unable to move. Ishizaka realized that Soichi was disguised and playing a prank on him, so he left Soichi there, threatening that the pine forest belonged to the old man, and if he found out someone had intruded, they would be in serious trouble. As Soichi remained stuck and frightened by Ishizaka's threats, he began to sweat and tried to remove the monster costume. At that moment, a flashlight beam appeared as someone walked into the forest. It was the cruel old man, armed with an axe. When the old man saw Soichi intruding, he threatened to kill him and threw his axe at him, but luckily it missed. However, the old man declared he would turn Soichi over to the police for trespassing in his forest. Just then, Soichi's brother, who had come looking for him, arrived on the scene. The old man then said it was good that both siblings were there, as he could hand them both over to the police at once. Soichi's brother replied that it was also good because he wanted to report the old man for setting dangerous traps. The old man thought it wasn't worth it, so he ordered the two siblings to quickly leave his forest, threatening that if he caught them again, he wouldn't let them go. After that, the two siblings hurried home. Upon arriving home, Soichi was scolded by his family, but he pretended not to care and walked over to look at the frog he had kept in a metal box, as it was like the only friend he had. However, it turned out that his frog had died, lying stiff in the box. The funeral of the Hell Doll. In a stormy area, heavy rain was falling, as a man stood trembling by the window in a mansion deep in the forest, saying that his greatest fear was coming true. Beside him, a little girl's voice was comforting her father, asking if he was okay and why he looked so scared. However, that voice came from a doll resembling Annabelle, speaking to him as if it were his daughter named Maria. The man thought to himself that his daughter had finally contracted the doll disease. In this strange and mysterious world, there were bizarre and unbelievable things, like this incident where his only daughter had become a doll due to the disease. The mother, seeing this, cried out in despair, unable to do anything, only able to hold the body of her daughter, who had turned into a doll. The father remarked that normally, families with children who contracted this disease and died would have to burn the doll. However, this couple refused to burn Maria because the doll represented their little girl. They decided to keep it, hoping that one day there would be a cure and their daughter could return to smile and talk to them again. But as time passed, their daughter's doll began to decay. The doll's skin started to peel and crack, turning into strange, ugly worms that emerged instead. Finally, they realized that they could no longer keep Maria